Good day everyone, my name is Sundians, and today we're heading out to the fields. It's farming time. Farming is an essential feature in the life of any Chaldean master, whether it be for embers, QP, or ascension materials. It's practically a daily activity that helps to keep your Chaldea running. As a result, farming servants will always have their place in any master's lineup. These heroes help make all of our lives just that little bit easier, decimating waves of enemies at a time with their area of effect noble phantasms. Ranking among the best options for this tough yet rewarding work is the Berserker class, with class advantage against every other of the major classes. They're a flexible and versatile option, and thankfully, many farming berserkers are free to play, being between 1 star and 3 stars in rarity. And today, we are going to rank them in order of their farming effectiveness. Here are the top 5 free to play berserker farmers. Coming in at the rear of this list, and deservedly so, is the eternal rival of the mighty Iskander, Darius III. While Darius is clearly a low-rarity, area of effect farming berserker, no one seems to have informed his kit of that, as it seems under the misguided impression that he is in fact a budget Kuhulain. Golden Rule, Battle Continuation, and Disengage are all good survival skills, ideal for a soloist or someone making a last stand, but not quite so ideal for a farming berserker. Now, not to be a doubter, but I don't think we're going to be seeing Darius solo a challenge quest anytime soon. This of course means he has absolutely no skills whatsoever relevant to his farming niche. No NP battery, no self buffs, and no team support skills. This is complemented by a low rank Madness Enhancement passive. This is of course the passive skill that increases Buster card effectiveness. Finally, he also makes much greater resource demands than many of the other berserkers on this list, by virtue of being a 3 star. As a result, there's much reason to be skeptical of Darius. Fate's Grand Order is a game where practically any servant can be used, and Darius is no exception. Taking advantage of his impressive base damage, his Noble Phantasm, and Thanaton 10,000 also has a 600% damage multiplier at NP5 post-rank up quest, which is higher than the typical 500%. This gives it a power and consistency, allowing him to reliably wipe out waves of mooks. For any potential stragglers left behind, his NP also lowers their defense by 10%, allowing them to be quickly finished off. Furthermore, Darius does have future potential. He will soon receive a future buff to his Guts skill that reduces the Buster card resistance of all enemies by 20%. This can either make them more vulnerable to Darius' Noble Phantasm, or that of one of his allies, essentially providing Darius some team support utility. That buff, of course, comes in August 2022? Darius is a servant with an effective Noble Phantasm, and unfortunately, little else. He simply lacks these buffs or team utility boasted by many of the other servants within the niche, and thus, quite deservedly, comes in last place on this list. Perhaps one of the most oft-forgotten servants in Fate Grand Order, Eric Bloodaxe's potential is as hidden as his true personality. It's not necessarily surprising that people have overlooked Bloodaxe. His skill set is entirely unsuitable for a farming berserker. Battle Continuation and Half-Dead Bloodaxe would be great on a servant that requires durability. Eric here does not. As a result, he lacks any form of self-buffs or NP charge to make him a more self-sufficient farmer, making him heavily reliant on support units like Merlin or Jude Leon. Finally, he also has Madness Enhancement, a passive skill which provides a Buster buff, only at rank B, which is on the lower end compared to his berserker peers. So with all these weaknesses, why do I still insist that Bloodaxe is decent and even make use of him myself? Well, firstly, his NP damage is extremely impressive. Aside from solid stats for a bronze unit, his overcharge effect provides a dramatic attack boost. At its base value of 100% overcharge, Bloodaxe receives a 30% attack buff, allowing him to easily wipe out waves of mooks. But it is his second strength that really allows him to stand out amongst the other farming berserkers. And that is that his kit, however poor for farming, actually enables him to wipe out waves even when there is a mob boss present with higher health. His first skill, Supporting Curse, is an excellent attack and, most importantly, defensive debuff for one enemy, and post rank up it has the potential to reduce one enemy's defense by 30% for 2 turns. Using this powerful debuff in conjunction with his NP and its own strong attack buff, which carries over to any subsequent attacks on that same turn, allows Bloodaxe to potentially wipe out a wave of enemies that include a mob boss character through a powerful buster chain. Eric Bloodaxe is admittedly a very flawed farming berserker. He lacks self-buffs aside from an admittedly impressive attack buff tied to his noble phantasm, and offers little in terms of team support outside of the debuff effects of Supporting Curse. His lack of any form of NP charge as well makes him highly reliant on support characters, and yet, his immense one-turn damage potential that allows him to wipe out even much bosses makes him a low-cost servant worth investing in. When it comes to our top 3 berserkers, ranking them becomes a little bit more difficult. Honestly, for some this could be down to a personal choice. But nonetheless, at the number 3 spot, we have Kiyohime. Childe's scariest stalker boasts impressive damage despite her low attack stat. On top of an impressive, and entirely justified, EX rank Madness Enhancement boost to her buster damage, her third skill, Flame Colored Kiss rank A, grants a whopping 30% buster damage boost for 1 turn, in addition to a debuff cleanse, which, given that it is attached to an offensive skill and is not just a skill itself, is a nice added bonus. This allows her to competently deal with waves of mucks through her noble phantasm, transforming flame-emitting meditation. Her NP also comes with a burn effect, which is an effective way of finishing off those unfortunate enemies who are barely able to survive her NP's damage. This burn actually becomes stronger in early 2021, when her first skill, Morph, is buffed, also improving its defensive buff, making Kiyohime less susceptible to being downed by one random critical hit. Finally, Stalking is a way to decrease the health of one enemy, such as a potential muck boss, by as much as 24%. And under the right conditions, to do immense damage. However, it also buffs the attack of the character it is used upon, potentially creating a dangerous enemy if they cannot be killed within 1 turn. Yet despite being a competent farmer, Kiyohime has drawbacks that prevent her climbing higher on this list. Her stats favour health, but even this isn't enough to protect her from a stray critical hit, which can take her down in 1 shot, and unlike Bloodaxe or Darius, she hasn't got guts to save her. She also lacks any NP charge or hard support skills outside of a defensive debuff on Stalking, which until level 8 is actually lower than the offensive buff it provides to the enemy. Finally, like Darius, as a 3-star she demands greater resources than her bronze brethren, although there is great value in investing in her skills, especially Flame Colored Kiss. Coming in at second on the list, and first place in all our hearts, is Spartacus. Despite his 1-star rarity and extremely low base damage, this slayer of oppressors is an excellent farmer who brings self-sustainability unseen amongst his peers. Spartacus boasts impressive offensive steroids to compensate for his poor base damage, including up to a 40% buster buff on his third skill, Triumphant Return of the Sword, in addition to an EX rank Madness Enhancement passive. These, combined with a 600% damage multiplier post rank up quest on his noble phantasm, Crying Warmonger, allows him to sustain impressive wave clearing damage output. His NP also bypasses defensive buffs. But what makes Spartacus really stand out is his second skill, Unyielding Will rank A. In addition to providing 5 turns of guts, it also gives up to a 30% NP battery, allowing him to charge his own Noble Phantasm gauge. With the right craft essence, either Kaleidoscope or a max limit broken the imaginary element, he can charge his NP gauge completely independent of any support from other servants. This makes him by far the most self-sustainable servant on this list. And of course, there is the added bonus of Guts protecting him from any random crits, which again is useful as an additional bonus to his NP charge. So what is it that holds Spartacus back from claiming the top spot? Well, apart from the virtues of the servant on the top of this list, he suffers from 2 primary weaknesses. The first of these is that to access Spartacus's true potential, you have to complete no fewer than 3 rank-up quests, which unlocks his 3rd skill and improves his Noble Phantasm damage multiplier from 500% to 600% at NP5. Now this does give 6 centimes, so maybe that's not such a bad thing, but it does mean he requires time investment in order to make him a usable farmer. The bigger issue, however, although by no means a regular issue, is that his low base damage can sometimes hinder his ability to finish off enemies with slightly above average health, even on some daily quests and with his steroids activated. Crying Warmonger may sometimes struggle to kill enemies if not featured as part of a buster chain. This makes him optimal to use on earlier and often weaker waves of enemies, although a support Merlin or even Jude Leon will be able to somewhat or even entirely mitigate some of his damage issues. Overall, Spartacus is a highly impressive 1-star farmer, who can bring great returns for fairly little investment. With solid offensive buffs and a 30% NP battery, he represents a self-sustainable option amongst a sea of servants who require immense support to function. That said, his low base damage holds him back from claiming the top spot on this list, even if these issues can be mitigated. And coming in at the top spot is the only limited free-to-play berserker, Paul Bunyan. Despite only being a 1-star, Bunyan stands head and shoulders above the rest. Bunyan deals out decent damage through her Noble Phantasm, Marvelous Exploits, and like Darius, her overcharge effect lowers the defense of any straddling survivors who can promptly be finished off. But what makes Bunyan the clear number 1 choice on this list is that, unlike her fellow berserker servants, Bunyan has tremendous support potential. Most notably, this is through her first skill, Delightful Comrades, which provides up to a 20% buster buff to all allies for 3 turns. Given that every single servant on this list has a buster Noble Phantasm, this allows Bunyan to enhance the NP damage, not only of her own Noble Phantasm, but also buffing her allies. She can also decrease the defense of an entire wave of opponents by 20% through Popcorn Blizzard, making it easier for either herself or one of her allies to wipe them out. It is through this that Bunyan can function as a secondary support within lineups, buffing allies, debuffing opponents, and allowing for greater overall flexibility. This isn't to say she doesn't have her weaknesses. She has lower damage potential, including only D-rank Madness Enhancement, although using Delightful Comrades really does help mitigate this issue. There is also the issue that she lacks survival skills. While she does have party-wide healing through her second skill, being Soup Lake, she lacks any hard survival skills like an Evade or Guts, so may be taken out by a stray crit. Finally, and most importantly, she can be immensely difficult to obtain. If you don't have her already, you're going to have to wait a fair bit, and even then, use a Rare Prism to unlock the All the Statesmen event from the Rare Prism shop. Judging from the JP server, this will become available at some point further down the line, and sadly, it is only there that she is available. Paul Bunyan is a rare free-to-play support berserker farmer, truly a unicorn in the field. In spite of the difficulties that can be encountered in obtaining her, she brings a tremendous amount to the table, even if a Rare Prism may be a little too high a cost to unlock it. All 5 of these farming berserkers represent genuinely legitimate options. Even some of the lower servants on this list, such as Bloodaxe or Darius, can be highly effective in their own right and in the right setup. Leave your thoughts and feedback down in the comments section below, and I want to thank you all for watching. I've been Seam Dunes. See you soon.